On the same day that Donald Trump was impeached for the second time, this time for inciting an insurrection, he's decided to release a statement via video that addresses the violence in this country, the violence that he himself has incited. And before we go to his video, I want to remind you all that if you look at recent images of the Capitol building, you'll see thousands of National Guard troops laying on the floor. Many of them had to sleep on the floor last night in order to keep the Capitol safe. And one of our members, Texton, wrote in and said this: "I've slept on hangar floors, warehouse floors, under trucks, in mud, sand, ice, all over the world when I was in the Marine Corps. I can't imagine how surreal it would be to wake up and open your eyes to the ceiling of the Capitol. Those soldiers will never forget this day." With that said, let's hear what Donald Trump has to say about the very violence in the country that he himself has incited.
I want to be very clear. I unequivocally condemn the violence that we saw last week. Violence and vandalism have absolutely no place in our country and no place in our movement. Making America great again has always been about defending the rule of law, supporting the men and women of law enforcement, and upholding our nation's most sacred traditions and values. Mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything our movement stands for. No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. No true supporter of mine could ever disrespect law enforcement or our great American flag. No true supporter of mine could ever threaten or harass their fellow Americans. If you do any of these things, you are not supporting our movement, you are attacking it. And you are attacking our country. We cannot tolerate it.
So while I think it's important for him to condemn the violence unequivocally, I do want to just point out that making America great again was never about the rule of law. It was always about white supremacy. Donald Trump has engaged in criminality while serving this country. Serving is a weird way of putting it, but while sitting in the White House as the commander in chief. So it's just absolutely ludicrous for him to say something like that. And to say that MAGA is all about supporting law enforcement. Just not the law enforcement that died on the day that the Capitol riot happened by these insurrectionists. Not supportive of the police officers we saw in videos where they're being suffocated nearly to death by these rioters who are pushing them up against a corner. I mean, it's just, anyway, but again, I guess I would prefer to not hear from Trump at all. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. But if we have to hear from him, if he feels the need to release any kind of statement, in the very least, he needs to condemn violence. I don't know how effective it's gonna be with these MAGA chuds, but I wanted to get your thoughts, John.
To the chuds, but not to that. Yeah, his description of the movement is obviously incredibly false, but whatever. The statement itself was perfectly fine and would be great if he had delivered it, let's say June 2015. Like if 2 weeks into his movement, when some of the initial crazies were like, yeah, I agree, Mexicans are rapists. Maybe then, if he had begun to push back and had done that consistently, it would really matter. As far as what he can do now, that's fine. That's good. How effective it's gonna be, I doubt very much. Because remember, like we were talking about earlier, they don't really believe things, they just believe whatever is convenient. And when he put out his video, close to a week ago, it very quickly started to spread that it wasn't really him, it was a deep fake. It was a faked thing by the deep state to try to turn off his movement. I'm sure many people will respond the same way to this. Or they'll get that there's sort of a wink wink. Even though I didn't see it in that, they will believe, well, of course he has to say that. He's trying not to get impeached. Anyway, the interpretation is no longer directly on him. He's baked it in over the last couple of years. My question for you would be, is he saying this to not be convicted? Is he saying this to be able to get back onto Twitter? I honestly think that it's more likely to be the latter than the former out of those two.
Yeah. Yeah, look, Donald Trump has absolutely no interest in doing the right thing just to do the right thing. Like every time he's done something that appears to be the right thing, it's motivated by his own self-interest. So, you bring up the social media angle. He has been banned from pretty much every major social media platform. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube was the latest, and so he hates it. And he did mention that in his speech. I actually wasn't planning on going to that video during this conversation, but I'll give you guys some time to get to that video next, so we can hear what he has to say. But I want to also be clear about something. Donald Trump deserved to be banned from these platforms. I am not someone who's in favor of censorship, but he has used these platforms, particularly Twitter, in order to incite the violence that we've seen in this country over the last 4 years. He should have condemned the violence after Charlottesville. He should have condemned the violence after the Cesar Sayoc story broke. He should have condemned the violence. Instead, he equivocates. He serves as an apologist for the violence. He even says complimentary things. Some of them are fine people. Come on, guys. We all know the truth about it. But here he is whining and crying about social media because that's all he seems to care about.
Yeah.
I also want to say a few words about the unprecedented assault on free speech we have seen in recent days. These are tense and difficult times. The efforts to censor, cancel, and blacklist our fellow citizens are wrong, and they are dangerous. What is needed now is for us to listen to one another, not to silence one another. All of us can choose by our actions to rise above the rancor and find common ground and shared purpose.
There are days like today where I have a lot of difficulty not cursing on this show. He can F off, 100%. You, who's a member of our federal government, Donald Trump, tried to censor members of Congress from simply certifying the Electoral College votes or simply sharing what their true opinions are about his rhetoric in office, his behavior in office. He threatens people. One of the stories today was how he, the lead up to the Capitol riots, he had talked to Mike Pence, who was intent on certifying the Electoral College votes for Joe Biden. And he was like, you can either be remembered as a patriot or, a P word.
Can you say that? I don't think you can say that actually.
I can't. No, I can't. Unfortunately,
you don't want to.
But
you want to rise
it.
above the rancor, Anna. Don't say that. Yeah, it's just such not. I take back everything I said about the first video. Screw him. God, that's so terrible. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick. Like can we have one conversation about free speech or the First Amendment? I tweeted something to this effect that isn't just about, hey, let's not have consequences for really rich, powerful men who've done something bad. Like, is that the only concern when it comes to speech, when it comes to expression and rights? It really does. Like, and every one of every topic has people who make that their mission. That's what they're focused on. It seems like the only people, other than I guess the ACLU, who are really about free speech. It's just, no, keep letting me monetize, please. Just keep letting me monetize. I know I did really bad things, and I totally violated the terms of service over and over and over, and they were public, and I knew what I was doing. But please, just let me keep making money off of this. That is not the entirety of what the First Amendment and speech is about. Rich people like Trump and other members, other people almost exclusively in the media, entertainment, and politics who run afoul of one platform or another and find it inconvenient they make slightly less money temporarily. It's a concern, sure, but that's not the entirety of the free speech conversation. And I hate that we keep making it that.
Yeah, and for the left, because I have seen a lot of this on Twitter, and I think it's depressing to see it because it seems like some of them are more concerned about what Twitter did to Trump's Twitter account as opposed to what the real threat was last week, which was thousands of insurrectionists storming the Capitol building and having 5 people die as a result of that. That's a little bit of an issue. How about focus on that just a little bit, But if you are on the left and you're concerned about censorship, I hear you. It is a legitimate concern because we've seen it happen to people on the left, people who don't have the kind of power and wealth and influence that someone like Donald Trump has. But your argument should be focused heavily on antitrust regulations in order to ensure that these companies don't become too powerful, to ensure that there's a diversity of options when you want to engage in this type of speech on social media platforms. That should be the focus. But when you see them minimize what happened in the Capitol yesterday while simultaneously make a giant deal about poor victim Donald Trump, that's a problem. I don't want to associate with that kind of argument. It's stupid. And it does not help the movement. It just doesn't. It doesn't. Focus on the antitrust laws. Focus on those regulations. Focus on what your proposed solutions are gonna be. And please, for the love of God, stop minimizing what happened last week. It's not a joke.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.